sure.
So everything that you're doing right now, no one forced you, right?
Not necessarily, is what
Which
it
means
says.
not, right?
No, it means
You see
maybe,
why?
maybe not.
So there's a possibility someone forced you.
Yes, let's explain the possibilities. One possibility is that every decision we make, every thought I think, is the result of neurons firing action potentials as a result of the laws of physics and electrical conductivity, which then eventually result in cognition, sensation, and movement in my muscles. Right. That's one possibility, and that might be deterministic, or it might be not deterministic, but it might be like under laws of physics which are probabilistic, which I don't have control over either way.
So
that's one possibility. Another possibility is that
do you have a way to think freely?
Do I have a way to think freely? Potentially. Yeah. But
so you're not sure even about that?
Yeah, I mean, it feels that way, but we can't discount the possibility that every thought we're thinking is the result of a previous electrical action potential, which is wait.
Nerves firing, the physiology of the brain has nothing to do with you making this decision to say things or to act or whatever you're doing. Yes. Do you believe that you have a soul? Or, sorry, not soul. Do you believe you have consciousness?
I do believe I have consciousness.
Okay.
We must have consciousness.
How do you know that? How do you know that?
Well, I'm sensing things right now. Look, I can feel myself.
But how do you know that's your consciousness?
Feeling yourself is consciousness. That's how it's defined. Okay, but you said something.
Wait, you
said something unwarranted earlier. You said earlier that kind of I've almost forgotten what you said. You said something so wrong, but you said that kind of the action potentials of the neurons firing in your brain don't necessarily have anything to do with your thoughts or your movements.
No,
biology doesn't support that.
Wait. I asked you as James, that was a question to you.
That is the only thing identified
by
biology.
You said
the only thing we have empirical evidence to believe in.
So do you have empirical evidence that you have consciousness?
I have empirical evidence I have consciousness, yes.
Which is what?
Explained.
Which is what?
Like, we can sense things. Sensing things is consciousness. That's what it means.
Okay, so a person who is, let's say, in a state where he doesn't feel anything on his skin, does he have consciousness?
Okay, maybe not. If he's thinking things.
You see what I mean? Because there are many conditions. Wait. You know, there are many conditions where people don't feel. In fact, even if you burn the skin, they don't have any sensation. But the thing is, they have consciousness. So James's definition, your definition. So you want to redefine consciousness?
I never gave a different definition of consciousness.
No, you said a person who feels, if I feel, that means I have consciousness. Yes. Those were your words. Don't backtrack now.
Yes.
So once again.
That is a sufficient condition. It's not a necessary condition.
So what is the necessary condition you have consciousness?
Oh, that's an interesting question. The necessary condition.
I hope you give an interesting answer.
Yeah, so in order to have consciousness, you have to have...
Carry on, I'm listening.
Thoughts, basically.
Thoughts?
Yeah, that's the basic...
Where did you get that definition from?
Well, how else would you define it?
Do you know any scientist who defines it as such?
Well, we can check. If we want to...
Well, you are the one who made the statement.
If you want to defer it, then we can check what the definition of consciousness is.
No, you are the one who made the statement. So I'm assuming there must be something that you can substantiate from some scientists.
Well,
or was it just speculation, which you usually do?
I know.
When you discuss this topic.
If it's wrong, then correct me. I don't mind.
No, it's not me correcting you. I'm asking you, can you back it up from scientists?
Let's see. Let's check.
Oh, so he doesn't know yet.
So, okay, you're just trying to score points rather than get to the actual issue.
No, I'm trying to get at the actual issues. You already changed your definition once. The first time I asked you to define consciousness. No, James, let's be fair. The first time when I asked you consciousness, you said the ability to feel. Am I right? And then you want to now backtrack on that definition. You want to give another definition, someone who has thoughts.
But what difference does it make? We're talking about consciousness. Why don't we just check what the definition is?
But you said you had empirical evidence, so show me the empirical evidence.
That was about something else earlier.
No, it was the same thing. You see, now you're stuck. You know, there's a reason. The scientists call this the hard problem of consciousness. The reason he's struggling now and he's actually stammering now is because he has realized that it's not an easy question to answer.
It's not academic. What do you actually
want
to
academic?
Assert?
You said there is no.
I
want to assert that what you just said, that you have evidence empirical evidence for consciousness. I want you to substantiate that.
What, me?
Yes, because you're the one who made the statement.
Well, empirical evidence means, basically evidence that you experience.
Yeah.
Obviously, I can only talk specifically for myself, but obviously I experience sensation and I experience thought.
So you're telling me, so let me get this right. You're telling me that if a born-again Christian experiences Jesus Christ, that is empirical evidence.
No, but that's a different thing from consciousness.
It's the same thing. He said experience. He said experience. Those were your terms.
Because consciousness...
Those were your terms.
Consciousness is not defined...
I'm assuming you're a Christian.
Yes.
No wonder.
Consciousness is not the same thing as...
Make up your mind. What is empirical evidence?
I have made up my mind.
What's empirical evidence, once again?
Evidence that you experience.
Okay, so a Christian is right. A Christian like him. My friend, have you felt Jesus in your life?
Yes.
No, but
so he got empirical evidence that Jesus...
Did you understand what I said?
I know what's personal.
Yes.
That's, a feeling is personal. I totally agree with you. I'm agreeing with you.
Okay.
A feeling is personal. I agree. Do you agree with that?
What is the bone of
You don't.
contention?
So you don't think...
You aren't listening to the actual explanation.
James, you're not... Are you saying...
You don't want to hear a full
answer,
answer,
you saying...
do you?
Okay.
Do you want to hear a full answer?
So empirical evidence for consciousness. Go on. Full answer.
Okay. So empirical evidence means like evidence that you experience in some respect.
Like him.
The normal way, listen to the full answer, the normal way that you experience empirical evidence is you have these sense organs like your eyes and like your sense of touch.
It's called observation.
And you use that to interact with the real world and try and derive information and reason to believe things about the real world. And that would be how you interact with and achieve empirical evidence.
So can you do any of that with your consciousness?
How that applies to consciousness and experience, how that applies to sensation and consciousness is you are...
Sensation is different to consciousness.
You are, well...
Sensation is different. There are people who don't have sensation but have consciousness.
Okay, that's true. But anyone who has sensation also has consciousness.
Say again?
Anyone who has sensation also has consciousness.
Yes, that I would agree with, but that still is not empirical evidence for consciousness.
Okay. No, it is because you have direct access to it. You are directly experiencing it. Because what else do you call
like
it?
Him.
If you
No. He directly experiences it.
Not him. Because,
why not him?
I'll give you the answer. Because
he said it's a personal thing,
not him.
which I agree with.
Okay, listen.
Yeah, go on.
Not him, because the difference between the Holy Spirit and consciousness is the Holy Spirit is an outside entity.
How do you know that?
Because it's not.
Do you believe in the Holy
part of
Spirit?
you.
Do you believe in it? So how can you define it?
What? That's how it's defined in their books.
How is it defined, say again?
No.
Let's see if you know the definition of Holy Spirit. How is it defined?
The Holy Spirit is not the same thing as just your sense of self or your sense of consciousness or your feelings, your pain, your sensations.
But no one said that.
Whereas
there's a straw man argument. No one said that.
Then why are you acting as though they're conflating? You're saying, oh, you can't experience one, but you can't experience the other.
Because if according to him the Holy Spirit is there, can the Holy Spirit whisper to him?
Have I said anything yet?
Possibly.
You keep
okay?
asking questions.
And you believe that is consciousness.
No, he is having a conscious experience whereby he thinks that the Holy Spirit is speaking to him, which means he is conscious. This is how it's different. The Holy Spirit is something extraneous. It's something external.
Yeah.
You can't simply use your internal thoughts to find out whether or not this Holy Spirit exists in the outside world. Whereas consciousness is something internal to you. So you can use your own feelings and sensations
so in other words,
to find out about your internal world, which is what consciousness is. You have direct experience of it.
So
that's why the difference is.
Look here, nobody uses experiences which are anecdotal, yes, to define something that is empirical. As a person who studies science, you should know this of all the people.
No,
it's anecdotal.
No, you're switching your definition.
No, I'm not. It's anecdotal. Everyone has different experiences. You as an agnostic and he as a believer.
You're pretending not to understand.
That's an assumption, isn't it?
What's an assumption?
You're assuming.
No, I said anecdotal. Anecdotal means everyone have their own experiences. Yeah. So anyone who says, for example, if you are a believer in God or you are a non-believer in God, you both have consciousness. Am I right?
All of us here have consciousness.
Yeah, I know. That's what I'm saying.
Normal.
But he said he has empirical evidence for consciousness. And I want to know what that is other than just your anecdotal feelings.
It's different in this case because
why?
Because
let him answer.
Listen, you can't use an anecdote.
He has been trying hard, but he still has failed miserably.
I've told it to you 5 different times.
And you failed every time.
Each time you either interrupt or you pretend not to understand.
I'll let you speak. I'll let you answer. And you told me at the end of the day, what I realized is that it is just your own feelings.
I told you
it's your own feelings.
No, I told you that the difference.
That's not empirical from a scientific perspective.
To try and find out between something that's internal to you, i.e. your conscious, your inner headspace, that's different from using your sensations or your thoughts to find out about something external to you.
How is that telling you that you have consciousness?
You can't use...
How is that? How are you going to prove to anyone? How are you going to prove to a scientist that you have consciousness? Are you going to tell him?
I can't prove to anyone else.
Allow me to finish. Are you going to tell?
I can't prove to anyone else that I'm conscious, but I can't prove it to myself.
Then how is it empirical?
You're just wasting time.
You see what I mean? He has realized that he cannot prove it to anyone, and then he says he calls it empirical. Go and learn the definition of empirical. I think we have done here. We're going round in circles. We are going round in circles because at the end of the day, the guy doesn't know what is the meaning of empirical. He doesn't have the. He doesn't even know what consciousness is about.
Internal to yourself,
Yes.
then you can use your thought.
So you cannot prove to anyone that you have consciousness. Am I right?
That's true.
Good.
Yes.
So if you cannot prove to someone that you even have consciousness, how are you going to prove to anyone that even God exists? And you keep asking us to prove to us God exists. The guy cannot even define. Listen, there's a surah in the Quran. Allah says you don't know.
Can you prove that God exists?
By the way, one at a time. You'll have your chance after him. I will.
I don't ask you for proof God exists.
No, you do. You do many times. You do. I've seen you on many videos asking people for evidence of God.
Evidence is
Yes?
the same thing as proof, is it?
So what does empirical evidence mean?
Empirical evidence means some sort of evidence. Okay, let's define one. Evidence.
Come in.
Evidence is anything.
No, empirical evidence. Give me the definition of empirical evidence. Why laughing? Why laughing?
Because I need to define both the words. You asked for two words. I'm going to define both of them.
No problem. Go on.
Evidence. Evidence is anything that, if it is the case, makes something else more likely to be true.
Okay.
So it's something where, like, A is evidence of B if probability of B given A is higher than probability of B. That's evidence.
So if you cannot give evidence, that means...
Empirical evidence is anything of that does that fills that requirement, which is also something that you experience in some way.
Only experience?
Yes.
Okay. So you're telling me if you cannot define B...
the difference would be something purely logical, that wouldn't be empirical evidence.
Okay, so
I know, logical evidence you might say.
If B exists, and you cannot give a definition or prove empirically that B exists, is it possible for B to exist?
If you can't prove something, if you cannot prove that B is true...
No, not true. Even of its existence.
Okay, if you cannot prove that B exists...
Yes.
Is it possible that B exists?
Yes.
Yes.
So, if you cannot prove God, that means God exists.
No.
You see the double standards?
No.
You see the double standards? Oh my God.
You don't even understand logic. What you just said to me is...
What?
What you just said to me is that...
If you cannot
prove
B, that B
exists,
yes.
Is it possible that B exists?
Yes.
And
if you cannot prove it,
yes.
Yes. So,
but that doesn't mean that God B necessarily exists. It might or might not.
Okay, so now you're using the term necessarily, but it still exists, right? So you're saying, wait, if you cannot prove B, I told you, I asked you very clearly, if you cannot prove that B exists, yes, then it is possible for it to exist based on your statement, right?
Yes.
Right. So, but does it necessarily exist?
No.
No. Does your wait
it might not exist.
Wait a minute.
Just because
so using no. Now you're using double standards. It can exist, cannot exist. You see what happens? If you cannot even prove empirically.
Please let me simplify it.
Yeah, go on.
Just because you cannot prove that something exists, does not mean that it doesn't exist.
Okay.
That's self-explanatory. It's quite simple.
So what? In other words, does your consciousness exist?
Does my consciousness exist? Yes. I'm certain of it. I have direct evidence of it. I have direct access to it.
But you said you cannot define it. So you cannot give evidence for it.
I can't prove it to someone else, no.
So how do you know your consciousness exists?
You do not know for certain that
How do you know consciousness exists if you cannot prove it to us?
No, I know that. I know it for myself. I can prove it to myself. I just can't prove it to you.
If you can prove it to yourself, why can't you prove it to us?
Because
do you speak a different language yourself?
You don't have direct access to my brain. You don't have direct access to the experience and the evidence.
I can connect you to certain machines where can you have access to your brain.
What?
I can connect you to certain machines where can you have access to your brain to see those neurons firing, those magnetic pulses firing.
In the future, that's a possibility. You might be able to find out.
Not in the future. Now it's possible.
No,
they can see your brain, certain part of your brain highlighting depending on certain drugs or certain actions you take. Yes.
Okay, but
now
even that would only be evidence. It wouldn't be proof.
Okay, so it's not proof of consciousness.
No, it wouldn't be proof. Let me explain why. So, yes, we can look on brain monitors and see parts of the brain lighting up in certain patterns, which kind of, through lots of different experiments, we observe this person is conscious when their brain lights up in this way.
No, wait. What do you mean conscious? What do you mean conscious?
As in awake.
How do you know the person might be in a vegetative state and you give them a certain drug and their brain lights up? Does it mean they're awake?
We don't know for certain. That's why I'm saying it's not.
You know,
proof.
look.
That's why I'm saying it's not proof. It's only evidence.
Okay. So in other words, you basically are telling me the only one that you can actually convince that you have consciousness is yourself.
Yes. Yeah,
Yes?
That's true for you as well. That's
Right.
true for everyone.
So what happened to your definition of of be existing or not existing based on empirical evidence?
Because I have access to the empirical evidence. That's what I've been trying to tell you. Because my consciousness is within my internal world, like my brain, which I have direct access to.
So is it something that is observable? Is this something that we can prove it in a laboratory? Is this something that we can actually measure in a laboratory?
For other people, that would be difficult.
So how do we know you're even telling the truth then?
It
has to come down to you.
That's what I've said. You don't know.
So in other words, it comes down to you as an individual to say whether something exists or not. Then what is? Wait. You
know that you are conscious.
James. What is stopping? Listen. What is stopping some individual telling them that they believe in a certain God who looks like an elephant? Because they can.
That's a totally different question.
No, it's not. It's not because they believe.
Maybe I misunderstood. Could you repeat the question?
Okay, just like you can convince yourself. Only yourself and nobody else that you have consciousness. They have convinced themselves that God looks like an elephant.
Okay.
Okay? So, who is right from the two of you?
Okay, the difference is my claim is about something internal to myself. It's a claim about my internal world, we could call it, my mind, my brain.
Yeah.
Whereas the other person is making a claim about something external to themselves. He's making a claim.
How do you know it's external? He believes that God is within him. How do you know it's external?
He's making a claim about, okay, if you want to take it in that direction,
go on.
He might believe that God is some sort of elephant-shaped thing which
resides inside him.
Which resides inside him,
Yeah.
and also created the entire world. So he is still making a claim about something external to him, i.e. the entire world.
No, but I didn't say anything about the external world. I never said that.
No,
I gave you a hypothetical situation. Just like you said, we can use hypothesis.
A God means a creator, right?
Sorry?
A God means a creator.
For him,
right?
it might mean a different thing.
Okay, but
it might be someone who protects him.
If that's him.
It might be someone who protects him.
Okay, what specifically does he mean then?
You see,
what is he meaning when he says his words?
Wait. You know why you're asking all these questions?
Because I need to know your ambiguous questions.
No. You know why? Shall I tell you, James?
Define your terms.
James, shall I tell you why?
No.
Because
define your terms.
Because you want to get to the truth of the matter. You want to be convinced. Wait. You want to be convinced of his worldview, whether it's true or not, right? So just like you have convinced yourself, he has convinced himself, and there shouldn't be any more questions.
No, he's making a claim about something external to himself. I've explained this so many times, and you just are refusing to understand or pretending.
No, I'm not.
You're pretending not to understand.
I'm not.
Or
I'm saying,
you're hoping that the audience.
Because anyone who uses the term empirical evidence, that means he should be able.
How many times has this conversation gone round in a circle?
So you're saying,
you just pretend you don't understand.
So James, you're telling me if something is of empirical evidence, you cannot convince other people.
It depends on the empirical evidence.
That's what I'm telling you. Empirical evidence is something that should convince everyone.
You didn't
hear. Should it not?
It depends on the type of empirical evidence.
So how many types are there?
Well, for one, we could talk about internal empirical evidence that you only experience yourself inside your internal world, your brain, your mind.
Who defines that as empirical evidence?
Or
who defines that as empirical evidence? Let's look at the definition of empirical evidence.
That's external.
Because I think he's just been waffling all this time.
Well, if you want.
Let's see the definition of empirical evidence, whether it implies to just personal feelings.
Something that you experience.
Just personal feelings.
That's not exactly what I said, by the way.
Empirical evidence. Let's see what it means. The meaning of empirical itself means based on or concerned with a verifiable by observation. Not your feelings.
How do you observe?
Wait a minute. Verifiable by observation. Can you observe your dreams?
Yes.
Your thoughts. You can observe them.
Yes, that's what you're doing when you experience them.
So when you're sleeping, do you know what you have experienced?
Sometimes. It depends. Sometimes you have an unclear recollection of them.
Which means not verifiable. Thank you very much. Thank you for making it clear to us.
You can be
Look,
certain
this is what I knew he was waffling because as soon as you realize that it is something which is verifiable by observation, okay, this is what we have realized, that because all you can do is convince yourself. If you can convince yourself only.
You've scored no points with the dream example, right? So let's examine this a little bit more closely.
Yeah, go on.
Okay, you said, can you observe your dreams, your own dreams?
Yeah.
And you can to a degree. The reason is you can be certain, as much as you can be certain of any sort of sensation, that you experienced a dream. You can have some recollection of the dream when you wake up, or you can wake with a start suddenly from dream state to waking state.
Is it verifiable?
But you don't have perfect observation of the dream in that you don't remember every single detail about the dream.
So how is it verifiable?
How is it verifiable?
Yeah.
So you'd have to...
Because that's what the definition of empirical is. Verifiable by observation. If you cannot verify it, then it is not empirical. There are many ways. For example, if you wanted to verify your fingerprints, for example, you go to a laboratory where you can actually verify this on that database, for example.
What would they do?
They would actually look at your fingerprints on a database and they'll verify it.
Okay.
That's one way of verifiable.
So they'd look at the fingerprints.
What is your definition of verifiable?
Listen to this. Would they look at the fingerprints on a screen?
Yes, they would.
Okay. And would they experience their eyes telling their brain?
It's called observation.
Would they either experience or observe their eyes telling their brain that they are seeing fingerprints on a screen?
Maybe you didn't hear what I said earlier.
No, just answer that question.
I will, but if you had heard me earlier, you wouldn't be asking this question. I said empirical evidence means verifiable by observation. Which part of that you didn't understand?
I'm trying to ascertain through asking you questions about what you mean by verify.
Can you please answer the question?
Which part of
verifiable by observation did you not understand?
Verify, I'm asking.
Do you not understand the meaning of verification?
I think I do, but it seems to not align with how you're using the word.
How?
So,
for example, if I wanted to verify that you have a brain, what would I do?
Okay, you'd probably have to... First, you'd maybe look at you maybe cut open my skull,
really?
and you'd look at my brain.
Are you like some sort of like prehistoric era or something? Today maybe, we got MRI. Why would I need to cut off your brain?
Okay, maybe.
You know, you really are a very illogical person. I think we are going in circles here.
Works, right?
I know that empirical evidence includes verifiable by observation. If he wants to cut his brain, that's up to him. But I won't do that. All right, thank you very much. Jazak Allah Khair. Assalamu alaikum.